So long story short, I got this theory. I have a theory that there's a difference. First off, there's a difference between a nepo baby and a second generation or third generation athlete. A nepo baby is somebody who had everything handed to them. They're basically no good at the sport after having all these high level resources and doors opened, and they still cannot prove themselves. A second generation athlete or a third generation athlete is somebody who either came close to what their dad or mom did in the sport, or they did even greater than what their dad or mom did in the sport. So it's clear that it wasn't just resources being provided. They had good genetics, they worked hard, and they just took advantage of the genetics that they had, which you can't fault them for that. Now, I want to differentiate what that really means, because I have a theory. I have a theory on how you can kind of predict who's going to be a nepo baby versus a second generation athlete or third generation athlete. You're only going to be good at the sport if your mom or dad who played the sport was not Hall of Fame at that sport, if they were not a legend in the sport. So for example, Shelly Ann Fraser-Price, I truly believe her son probably should not go anywhere near track. I mean, it's just not to speak on her son like that, but I mean, I highly suggest that he stay away from track. I mean, if you look at a guy like Al Horford, and when it comes to basketball, his dad played pro, but his dad was not Hall of Fame. Al Horford ended up having a really good career, / borderline great career. Kobe Bryant is probably the best example of this. Dad was a pro, but he was not Hall of Fame. And Kobe, I mean, one of the best basketball players to ever lace him up. Steph Curry is a great example of this right now in the NBA. I mean, Steph and Seth, because Seth is a decent player. He's basically close to what Dell is, or Dell was when he was in the league. Steph Curry took that, ran with it, around the block multiple times. Klay Thompson, Devin Booker, all these type of guys, their dads were decent. They played, I say decent, meaning they were really good enough to make it to the pro level, but while they were in the pro level, decent. They were not Hall of Fame level players. There's a certain amount of pressure that comes when your dad is Hall of Fame. There's a certain amount of pressure, number one, but number two, there's, in my opinion, just a theory, there's not as much hunger to kind of prove yourself or to top what your dad did, because I mean, honestly, you guys probably have it when you make it to the Hall of Fame level. Your dad probably, put himself in a really good position, and the standards to beat are going to be next to impossible. Look at someone like Tim Hardaway Jr., all-star level player, very good. I mean, killer crossover. Tim Hardaway Jr. was nasty. His son, Tim Hardaway Jr., decent player. I'm not going to call him a nepo baby, but decent player, not as good as his dad. Michael Jordan is probably, a really good example of this. Legendary player. In my opinion, best to lace him up when it comes to basketball. And his son didn't go pro. LeBron James, as much as people want to crack on the man has, if you divided his career into 3 different periods, if you said, okay, 03 through 09, 2010 through 2015, and 2016 through 2022, all 3 versions of those of LeBron go to the Hall of Fame. All 3 of those versions. And this man has a son right now who, no disrespect, it's nice that he overcame the heart issue, cardiac arrest. It's, knock on wood, thank God he's alive and he keeps going. But Bronny James has no business on an NBA roster right now, specifically after his year at USC. After that year at USC, he had no business in the NBA. But the reason I'm not mad at it, nepotism exists. It exists. Everybody else gets to benefit from it. If he, wants to have his son on the team, that's his business. The Lakers, it's up to them. They got to shut that down. If they don't want to shut it down, Lakers fans, if you keep paying for tickets, you're part of the problem. Stop paying for tickets. If you really don't agree with the moves, stop paying for tickets. Stop buying season tickets. Stop buying league pass and all this stuff to see the team. No, don't support them. I mean, the theory, I don't want to say it applies to everyone, because there's always going to be exceptions to the rule. But if you even switch sports, if you look at Pat Mahomes, his dad was a pro and he was playing baseball, but he was not playing football. So that's kind of left a whole lane for Pat to run in. He has, pro level resources money wise, and is able to train in these facilities without having the pressure of, oh, my dad was, a Hall of Fame level quarterback. It's just not the case. The Mannings are probably the best example of this when it comes to football, on seeing multiple layers of this. Archie Manning, not to be confused with Archie, that was that boy from, or he's from the South, but he played for the Saints. I remember watching videos on him on NFL Network back when they were called the Aints and they were wearing paper bags, all that stuff. Archie Manning was a pretty good player. Now, at the college level, when I looked it up, he was a Hall of Fame level college player, but for pro, he did not go to the Pro Football Hall of Fame, even though he was a pretty good dang player. Peyton and Eli, we already know about them. Cooper ended up not, doing as well as Peyton and Eli, but to have 2 out of 3 sons play as well as they did, that's very rare. But it also kind of follows the theory that the dad was not a Hall of Fame level guy. So the sons had room to improve upon what their dad did. Peyton had like 4 or 5 MVPs, if I'm not mistaken. I know for sure he had the 2 rings, one with Indy and then one with Denver. Everybody knows about Eli, especially in New York. Jesus Lord, that man, what he did to what him and the Giants did to the New England Patriots both times, that has made Eli a legend. Even if Eli's never going to be a Pro Football Hall of Famer, I think he probably could get in. Even if he never gets in, he's a legend just because of that. Now, if you look at the next generation of Manning, which is playing college football right now, you got that young man named Arch. Now, Arch Manning, he's not Eli or Peyton's son. He's Cooper's son. But people, they like to look at his uncles and what his uncles did and directly compare that. Now, he's in a tricky spot because it's not his dad who put the pressure on him, but more so his uncles. And even I think Cooper played pro football as well. But Arch, I mean, he is suffering from multiple things when it comes to that NEPO baby stuff. There's an extra amount of attention that you get when you have a certain name attached to you in certain fields. So, I mean, if you're playing football and the last name is Sanders, Manning, you're going to be watched with a great deal of scrutiny. If your last name is Lewis, all that type of people are going to be watching you. Okay. Me personally, a guy like Shedeur Sanders, and I bring him up, he's an example of why I don't understand why these NEPO babies try to play these sports like how their dads did. You could easily avoid all the drama of people bothering you, stressing you out, coach disrespecting you, putting you on the bench, trying to prove a point, cutting you or cutting your brother to send a message out there to people that your dad can't be involved. You guys should have been business owners. Your dads are rich. What the hell are you playing sports for when your dad is rich? You should be playing sports for yourself. You should be owning the league yourself. You should have took a few million or a few $100,000 and started going on a circuit on doing some small league stuff and setting up your own league. That way you don't have to deal with any sort of pro football nonsense. Or you can start an agency if you don't want to have your own league. You don't want to start an agency. Go do something else. Start a dealership. Start some business. Use your brain power. Go think in a box for about a month. Just go out in the street, go explore, see what demand there is, what need there is in the community. Monetarily, of course. I'm not saying go do some socialist stuff and just go start donating money and time with no benefit to you or your family. But I mean, geez Louise, all this following in your elders' footsteps, you got to ask yourself, you got to do some introspection. What's the real reason you're doing this? Are you doing this for attention? Are you doing this to be remembered? What's the end goal? What's the end game? I mean, it's their life. I can't tell you what to do. Nobody can really tell you what to do. But it does get annoying when you see some of these fanboy pages, putting on all this sympathetic stuff for some of these guys, saying it's not fair. Don't judge them. It's not. I'm like, what do you expect? What do you expect when you receive any sort of advantage in life? People are going to be a little bit salty about that. A lot of people are going to be jealous. Doesn't make it right, but just go ahead and expect it. There's a lot of guys who had dads who went pro, but they weren't that good, and they went and built upon that because their dad showed them things and made sure their son was greater than them. If you look at a guy like Antonio Brown, I think his dad played AFL football. If I remember correctly. I remember in an interview he said that his dad played AFL football and it was pretty nice, but he just didn't play NFL. Antonio Brown was disgusting in the league. Nasty. Floyd Mayweather Jr. is probably the best example of this when it comes to fighting. Floyd Mayweather Jr., his dad was a good boxer, decent boxer, no slouch. Uncle Roger, who was his trainer, That man was nice. Roger Mayweather was really nice when it came to the mitts. And Floyd, we already know about Floyd. Floyd is arguably the best to ever lace him up when it comes to boxing. Now, that's very different from someone like Shane Mosley Jr. and Sr. Very different. Now, it's just my theory. That's just my theory. I think that if your dad is a legend, stay out of the sport unless you're going to play it for fun or make money in a different way, to where you're wearing a suit or polo or khakis and you're not having to really get dirty, and playing the sport itself. If your dad was trash, if your dad was straight, if your dad never went pro, go for it. Have fun. You'll probably learn a lot, while having the resource to improve if your dad did go pro, but he wasn't that good. But no, honestly, if your dad's a Hall of Famer, I would highly suggest you stay away from the pro game, because you're going to be looked at as a NEPO baby. I think that whole Shador, Bronny James, Archman, and those videos in the past were pointless, but I found a use for it, and that those guys really should be starting businesses. If they fail in this, your life is not over. Go start a business, man. Go start that business. Take it to the next level. Your dad played sports so that you don't have to. You don't have to subject yourself to being talked to crazy by a coach and all this stuff. And don't get it twisted, I love watching sports, but I mean, if you can make money doing your own thing and starting your own league, why not? Why not become a business owner? Why not become the top of the food chain that people like to complain about and say the owners get all the revenue? Take it to the next level. Be the change, you want to see. Not to sound cliche or like some damn Tumblr picture or quote, but somebody's got to do it. Why not you? That's it for this one. As usual, don't be mad at me. Be mad at yourself.